price of only final goods and services are calculated in total production in each sector. Why only final goods and services counted? Because the price of final good already include the price of intermediate good. For example, the price of biscuit already include the price of sugar, flour, salt and oil or the other items which are required for making biscuit. So only the price of final goods are to be calculated. The value of final goods and services produced in each sector during a particular year provides the total production of the sector for that year, and the sum of production in three sectors give what is called the gross domestic product of a country. GDP, gross domestic product, means the value of final goods and services which are produced in each sector but during a particular year. The sum total of production in primary, secondary and tertiary sector is known as the GDP, and only the value of final goods and services are included. It is the value of all the final goods and services produced within a country during a particular year. GDP shows how big economy is. In India, the mammoth task of measuring GDP is undertaken by a central government ministry. It means the difficult task of calculating GDP is done by the Ministry of Central Government. This ministry, with the help of various government dependent departments of all the Indian state and union territories, collect information relating to total volume of goods and services and their prices and then estimates the GDP. Historical change in sector. Generally, it has been noted from the histories of many and now developed countries that at the initial stage, means at the beginning of the development, primary sector was most important sector of economic activity. It has been noted from the history that in most of the countries, primary sector was the most important sector in the initial stage of development. As the method of farming changed and agriculture sector began to prosper, it produced much more food than before. In your geography chapter 4 in agriculture, you have studied about the change of farming method from our previous time, from our historical time to the modern India. There is change in the farming method. In the same way, in other countries also, due to change of the farming method, there is increase in the production of food than before. Many people could now take up other activities. There were increasing number of craft person and traders. Buying and selling activities increased many times. Besides, there were also transporter, administrator, army, etc. However, at this stage, most of the goods produced were natural product from the primary sector and most people were also employed in this sector. In the initial stage of development, agriculture sector was very important. Not only the agriculture sector, along with the agriculture sector, the other activities also like buying, selling activities were increased because of increase in the agriculture sector. There were many transporters, administrators, armies, etc. Over a long time, more than 100 years, and especially because new method of manufacturing were introduced, factories came up and started expanding. After the development of agriculture, many people they shifted from the agriculture sector towards the industrial sector because new methods of manufacturing were introduced. Many factories came up and started expanding. Those people who had earlier worked on farm now began to work in factories in large number. People began to use many more goods that were produced in factories at cheap rates. Secondary sector gradually became the most important in the total production and employment. People shifted from the agriculture sector to the industrial sector because industrial sector were expanding. They were providing more job opportunities to the people. Secondary sector gradually become the most important in total production and employment. Hence, over time, a shift had taken place. This means that the importance of the sectors had changed. In the initial stage, primary sector was more developed, was more important, but after a long time, the importance shifted from the primary sector to the secondary sector. In the past 100 years, there has been a further shift from the secondary to tertiary sector in developed countries. Again, there was a shift from the secondary sector to tertiary sector. In the past 100 years, the workforce shift from the secondary to tertiary sector in developed countries. The service sector has become the most important in terms of total production. Most of the working people are also employed in the service sector. This is the general pattern observed in developed countries. In developed countries, most of the people are also employed in the service sector.